In the last video, I was working with the porcupine class, where porcupine is an object that knows how many quills it has and whether it's angry. And we wrote a method, create porcupine, that took in a number and created a porcupine with that many quills that was born angry, right? All porcupines were born angry, and then we looked at this example code here, and we worked through that scary little example, and we saw that we could actually have two names for the same object. And I want to continue with those ideas and take a look at, let's look at a very short segment of code first. Suppose, see, maybe I could, alright, fine, we want that off the screen. But again, we'll create Quilly, and Quilly will be the result of create porcupine with 10,000 quills. And I'm going to draw a complete picture of what that does. So here's Java. And I like to draw Java as a circle with some feet, right? So that if Java needs to, it can climb stairs and jump up and down. That's why it has feet. And Java is thinking about, what is Java thinking about? Java is thinking about this variable we just defined, which is Quilly. And the value of Quilly is, well, it's a porcupine object. You know what? I kind of wish I had made more room. Okay, let's do this. We're going to do something very unorthodox. We'll have Java thinking from the other side of its head right now, like this. So Java's thinking about Quilly, and in particular, Java's thinking that Quilly refers to, let's change colors here. Quilly refers to one of these porcupine objects. And a porcupine, let's see, porcupine that has two traits. A number of quills, which is not going to fit on my screen. Oh, that's upsetting. There we go. 10K. Totally fits on the screen. All good. And what else does Quilly have? It has is angry, which is apparently true, which also doesn't fit on the screen, which is very upsetting. I apologize. Jeez, that's a mess. Alright, just go with it. Just go with it. I don't want to draw this anymore. Alright, and Quilly, my variable, refers to this porcupine object that stores numquills of 10,000 is angry if true. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to look at a method that soothes Quilly's anger, because I don't want Quilly to be so angry. So I'm going to try writing some code, and the code I'm going to write is not going to work. So, but I think it's an easy example, and it's a nice one to see what doesn't it work. So I'm going to write something that might seem at first like it's going to succeed in soothing Quilly's anger, but in reality it's not going to. So here's the code that's not going to work. Public static void, because soothe doesn't return anything, and I'll define it down here. And soothe is going to take in is angry, that's a boolean. I'll just call it B. And all it's going to do is it's going to say, you know what, B should be false, so that my porcupine is no longer angry. And remember, I said this is not going to work, so let's see why it doesn't work. I mean, it seems at first that, wait, I'm passing a boolean. I change that boolean to false. That should mean Quilly is no longer angry, right? Okay, let's see why it doesn't work. So when I call this method, into existence comes a new thought bubble. So going up to this thought bubble, this is the soothe, the thought bubble from calling soothe. And in soothe, we, let's see, before we call soothe, we find the value of Quilly.isAngry, which is, let's see, Quilly is angry, true. And we pass that true to soothe, so inside of soothe, the variable b will be associated with the value true. Okay, then what do? We say b gets the value of false, and you may already see what's gone wrong. We have two truths in the problem, right? There's Quilly's is angry value, and there's the value of b. And although they both store the value true, we now suspect what the problem is going to be. When we say b gets the value false, b gets the value false, that's great, but that didn't change whether Quilly was angry, right? That didn't change anything about here. And that's because when we pass Quilly.isAngry, we're just passing the value of this expression, which was true. We're not passing the field itself to be able to change what's inside that field. We just passed the value true, we stored it in a brand new variable, we changed the value of that brand new variable, and at the end of this method, what's going to happen? Well, the soothe method ends, so the variable b dies, and it's as if we never called this method in the first place, and nothing has changed. So that was clearly not the right way to soothe angry Quilly. Okay, so let's go back in time. We didn't do that. This time, let's go even further back in time. This time what I want to do is I want to pass Quilly itself, because passing the true value didn't do anything, but maybe passing the entire porcupine will. And so now, just like I told you that the last way we did this was not going to work, I will tell you that this way will work. So now soothe takes in the entire porcupine, I'll just call it P, and we're going to write. Now, you may have just decided from the previous method when we took in, let's go through this, when we took in b and we said b equals false, you may have come to the conclusion that, oh, so a method can't change what you pass it. And that's not exactly right. A method, if my method, let's change this back to a porcupine. If I take in p and we say p equals something else, that's not going to have any impact on the outside world. P will be a brand new variable. I will change P to refer to something different. At the end of the method, P will die. But I can alter what's inside of an object, and I want to show you that. Let's see, we were trying to alter whether or not P was angry to be false. So we're soothing this porcupine. Very important because we don't want to get stuck with all those quills. So let's see what happens when we call soothe Quilly now. So first thing, we find the value of this expression Quilly, and the value of Quilly is this porcupine object. Really, it's the memory address of this porcupine, but let's not get too crazy. So we really pass this memory address, or in other words, somehow we're passing a reference to this porcupine to the soothe method. So when the soothe method comes into existence, and soothe has a variable p, p is going to refer to whatever we passed in, and what we passed was the memory address of this porcupine object, right, the value of Quilly. So P refers to that same porcupine object, and that's going to make all the difference here. Now when we say P dot is angry equals false, what's going to happen? P, we're going to travel down this arrow, is angry becomes false, right? Now I think you see that this works. At the end of this method, P is going to die, right? This whole thought bubble about soothing is going to go away. This arrow is going to go away. But did we succeed? Did that have a lasting impact on the world? Yes, it does, because Quilly now refers to a porcupine who is no longer angry. Okay, so this is the right way to do it. And in fact, I should really be smart here and leave that on the screen before I make a mess. Alright. Now you can always go back in the video to see the correct way, but I want to show you the wrong way again. There's one more wrong way I want to show you because I think it'll be illustrative. Because we saw that when we passed the Boolean and we tried to change the value of that variable, it didn't seem to do what we wanted. When we passed the entire porcupine, we could change the Boolean inside it. Right? That's because P and Quilly both referred to the same object, and that same object had there was one object, it had one is angry field, and if we change, so I think this is another case of what we called aliasing. Right? Quilly and P are two names for the same object. I want to show you possibly a popular mistake, or at least one that will illustrate another way we could have, something that does not work, but I think is helpful to see. And that's, what if instead we said P should be the result of creating a porcupine with the same number of quills, but that porcupine that we create is not going to be angry anymore. I want to see, what does this code do? That might seem on the surface like it's going to achieve the same thing. It makes a porcupine that's exactly the same, and it makes it no longer angry. But hopefully you can see what goes wrong. We're going to see that right now. What goes wrong? So again, we call soothe Quilly. The value of Quilly is this reference to this particular pink porcupine over here. Therefore, we get a new thought bubble since we're calling a method. That method that we're calling is the soothe method again. And soothe has one variable inside it called p, and p refers to whatever it is we passed in. And what did we pass in? A reference to this porcupine. So p refers to the same porcupine. And I'm realizing now, that's okay, we'll deal with that in a moment. Okay, p refers to the same porcupine. And then what do? We say p gets the value of this expression. And the first thing to find the value of this expression, we find the value of p, which is this porcupine here. And p's numquils is 10,000. That's supposed to be 10,000. And we take that 10,000 and we pass it to create porcupine. What does create porcupine do? Well, way back when, create porcupine made a porcupine, stored that number as its numquils, and stored true as is angry, and returned it. So this code here is apparently going to, let's see, if I used every possible, let's use some yellow. It's going to make a porcupine. Make a porcupine, which is clearly not what we wanted to do, but let's just see where it goes. It's going to make a porcupine. That porcupine is going to have a number of quills. The number of quills is whatever we pass it in. What we passed was p numquils, so this is also going to be 10,000, which will abbreviate 10k. And it's going to have an isAngry field, and I believe isAngry is true. We assigned true to that inside the create porcupine code. And then what do? We store this porcupine in p, right? Well, p currently refers to the pink porcupine that Quilly refers to, but when I say p gets the value of create porcupine, that means p no longer refers to this porcupine down there. P now refers to my brand new yellow porcupine. And at this point, you'll probably see what's going wrong. But when we say p isAngry gets the value of false, well, that's great. This will get the value false. And then at the end of this, p is going to die. The method goes away. Actually, this, I think, answers a question we might have wondered about, which is, when do these field things that we created die? Right? And the answer is, when p is forgotten, there's a moment where nobody refers to this porcupine anymore. And by the way, clearly we haven't succeeded in changing whether Quilly is angry, so this method is not correct. The way we had it before was exactly right, when we simply said, get rid of this line, don't make a new porcupine, simply assign to isAngry of the existing porcupine, and that will change the whatever porcupine we pass in. But let's come back to this moment. I got rid of this thought bubble, the soothe method ended, but I created a porcupine. P no longer refers to that porcupine. P died at the end of this method, so what happens to this porcupine object? And its numquils and isAngry. And the answer is, it is garbage collected. Garbage collected. So Java is smart about this. Java realizes there are no variables that remember this object anymore. And if nobody remembers it, it dies. When no one remembers it, it dies. It gets garbage collected. Java frees up this memory so that there's more memory available for the rest of your program to run. So that's called garbage collection. If you work in a language like C and you work with objects, then you have to explicitly tell C when you are done with memory. Java is smarter than that. Java can tell you're done with this porcupine object and free up memory, so you don't need to worry about what happens to those objects you create but can't use anymore. Alright, I think this worked through about as hairy of an example as I might want to subject you to with this sort of thing. So I'll see you in another video.